Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Fairfield Live, our monthly program going into depth and detail about some of the issues that we are facing in the city and some of the new programs that we've created. And this evening, very happy to have as my guests City Councilwoman Connie Boyer, who is chair of the Economic Development Committee, and also Doug Hughes, who is employed at Human Factors International. Doug is a member of our newly formed Grants Committee. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Grants Committee is and how it can help the city. I'll start by saying that the concept of the Grants Committee started out of our strategic plan. It was actually our objective 1C, 3, and that objective read that we were to establish a community grants writing office to increase Fairfield's ability to seek funding for community projects. As many people are aware, there are numerous foundations and agencies within government that give us the opportunity to either enhance some of the projects that we're doing or unique opportunities to get funding to actually do many of these projects as well. And we do have great grant writing talent within the city. I think we recognize that. And we wanted to harness some of that talent and some of the resources that we had to make sure that we weren't missing opportunities to take advantage of helping to create, fund some of these projects that are very, very important to us. So Connie, why don't I start with you? I know we did give that responsibility to the Economic Development Committee of the Council, and if you can let us know how you got started and where we are now.
Well, first, I guess it was just a matter of thinking of people that we knew that had been available and had done grants before, and started asking those people, and we got a little bit of a core group. We started out with Dale Krause, who actually has resigned since then, but Dale helped us get started. And Dale is a great guy that's kind of quiet and behind the scenes, but is very experienced in grant writing. And so he was one of our first members.
And again, Dale was with Pathfinders RC&D,
yes,
and they've written numerous successful grants for the city in the past, so he was the natural place to really start
yes.
for us.
And, you know, hopefully we can still call him up with questions from time to time, and he can help us a little bit. But we also have Kelly Lewiston, and she's also from Pathfinders. We have Cooper Norman from Prairie Architects. And, you know, I think with his background, he is familiar with grants in those areas.
Yeah, his expertise is really in preservation, architecture, and I know that he's written a lot of grants successfully as well.
Okay. Also, Linda Stallone helped us kind of get organized. She has been out of the country, but again, she is a great organizer and experienced in grant writing. And she worked for MUM when she was here. We have Fran Cuccitti, and she's, again, a hidden gem that is not working outside the home now, but has done a lot of work in nonprofit organizations and also grant writing. And I think she was pretty instrumental in the beatbox, was she not, I believe?
Yes, I think she helped them organize as well.
And then we have Doug Hughes, and we also have Ron Blair as an advisory board member.
Right. So how did you, once you identified some of these people, how did you get started?
Well, it was a matter of calling them up and organizing a meeting, and we just gathered around the table and sat for a couple sessions really and discussed how to get organized, what things to look at initially, where we could go for sources for help, what tools we could use to do research, those kinds of things.
Right. Doug, where do you begin to look for grants? You know, what are some of the actual resources that are available, and how do you start organizing to utilize those best?
Well, there are numerous sources that you can use. There's a lot of hard copy material that's available in the library, and you can go and find books there that will direct you into the areas of people that actually are grant makers. But then a tremendous resource these days is of course the internet, and the key to that is getting the right words in there that you're searching on, so you come up with the hits that you want to get the people that are really going to fulfill the grant that you want to have written.
Great. So did we do an inventory of what's available to us now, and are we aware of what that is and know what tools we want to add?
Well, we know that the library has what's called the Iowa Foundation Data Book. And they have it on CDs, which basically is focused in Iowa. And that particular tool is $135 a year. That, you know, hopefully we'd like to find some sources to help the library pay for that. But this year it came out of their budget. Now, there is another source that's nationally called, I don't know if it's the Foundation, seems like that's not the whole name. But that particular tool, which you can subscribe to, is more in the range of $900 to $1,000 a year. And of course, we don't have the funding for that at this point, but there have been other organizations that have used that tool, and hopefully we can use that at some point and be able to purchase that.
And I think that's available on a sliding scale too, so depending on which categories you want to get into,
Right.
it costs you so much money. If you want to get the full capability, it costs you probably the upper limits that Connie was talking about.
Right. You know, also, I think available to us from a statewide level as a city and as a community is another area that we're talking about looking at. You know, we've taken advantage of some grants over the last couple of years that have helped us with community design, and I think part of the responsibility of the committee then is going to be to look for all potential opportunities that the city can take advantage of. And what are some of the things that your committee has identified now as priorities, and how did you go about setting some of those priorities?
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, we started out with the strategic plan that you mentioned when you first started the broadcast. And we went through the strategic plan and looked at those items that we thought could use funding in one way or the other. And then we went through and ranked them all again on the order of priority. And then we're deciding from that as to how we can best utilize the resources to fulfill those various needs. But I think that the primary things that we're looking at right now are how we can help the Civic Center and do downtown revitalization, since they seem to be very critical items for the city at this moment.
Right. Yeah, and I think those two projects probably dovetail quite well. And from the city side, I know that with the success of the redirection of the local option sales tax, we are going to be putting some dollars into downtown revitalization. Hopefully, we're going to add some more of that through some debt financing as well. And with that, I think there's, you know, we're going to need a partnership with a lot of our building owners in the downtown, and some of the grants that could be available could potentially help them in some way. Is that how we see that
Yes, I would say so.
coming out?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think that in order to probably do that, we would have to look at making the downtown some sort of historic district or
Right.
something like that in order to qualify for that kind of funding.
Right. I know one of the other things that your committee is looking at is qualifying our downtown area as a cultural district also. This is one of the new designations coming through the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. I think they just awarded their first cities across the state of Iowa as cultural districts. I think certainly Fairfield would qualify as one of those, but I know one of the things that will come through this designation is some funding for Main Street rehabilitation, particularly as it is directed towards culture and the arts. So I don't know how far the committee has maybe gotten on that, but is there something to report?
I guess I don't have anything unless you've heard anything, Doug. I know that Cooper was looking into that more specifically, and so we actually meet again tomorrow,
Okay.
and maybe he'll have some details. Do you know anything?
No, I don't.
additional,
And
Dick?
I know that's his area of expertise, and so he was going to be
Okay.
doing that.
Right. Now, I know when we discussed this during our strategic planning process, we thought that this office could also be a resource for the entire community. Is that still the direction and thinking that the committee would take
Well,
long term?
I guess I feel that it could. I mean, I've already had phone calls from people out in the community that just need help. I mean, many times they're willing to write the grant, they just need to know where to look, or, you know, that contact. And so it's a little bit of a networking, which I think is where we can be really useful, is helping some organizations, for example, Little League. That's been a contact that I've had, and have directed them in a couple different places. And in fact, I know they were successful in one grant that they recently got. So I think in the networking end, this certainly can be useful to your organizations
Right.
here.
Doug, now writing a grant, what's involved generally? What do you face when you look at a grant?
Well, first we have to define the need, and we have to make sure that it is well defined, and we have research that will back up why this would be a benefit to the community or the various constituents. And then it's necessary to find some particular grant maker that's interested in funding that kind of project. And then you need to get a hold of the grant maker to find out what their deadlines are, what their criteria are for giving grants, and work with the grant maker to make sure you fulfill all those requirements. The grant writing itself probably is not the biggest part of the task. The biggest part of the task is making sure you get all the supporting data that goes with it, and make sure that you comply exactly with the grant maker's requirements.
Okay. I've always understood that there's some sort of science, maybe for a lack of a better word, in writing for grants. Is there a particular type of style of writing that they like to see, or is it really just about the, having matching the need to the grant itself and having the right materials that back it up?
Well, I believe most of the grant makers do require that your proposal be submitted in certain formats. So there is an important format structure that you have to follow, of which the executive summary, the introductory letter and the executive summary are very important, because 90% of the grants will get either accepted or rejected based on those two documents.
Oh, okay.
And the grant maker may not go beyond the introductory letter and the executive summary if they don't feel that there's, if it's not well presented.
So you have to defend, you have to tell your story of need in that
Yes.
introductory letter, and you have to defend it in your...
Yeah. Quickly
Yes.
and powerfully, I think. And
Yes.
one thing I've come across is that, particularly looking at a couple different places, that they like to see that the request that you're giving to them, that if they give you money, it's going to impact a broad base of the population.
Right.
So not just a little targeted
Right.
few people.
Right. What else do they like to see applicants for a grant participate in? How else do they need to look at becoming a part of that, and to really strengthen their position? We hear the term matching grants a lot. I mean, is that an essential ingredient to writing a successful grant, is having the proper match?
It can be in a lot of cases. Here again, it depends on what the grant maker's requirements are. A lot of them may not want to completely fund a project. They may want to make sure that you're raising a certain amount of the funds, and then they'll match in part of the funds. So a lot of it depends on what they're trying to do. And I think there's very few of them anymore that will just outright grant the full funding for a project.
Right. And I know that grants are highly competitive, so that's the other reason why you really do want to have the expertise on your team that's really researched this well and has crafted the application well. So we really appreciate the efforts that you're all putting in on our behalf. Now, I also recognize, as we mentioned before, that we're looking for this to be a direct benefit to the city and some of the projects that we're doing. But if others are interested in becoming involved, how would you invite them to become involved in some way?
Well, we are meeting the second Tuesday of each month at noon here at City Hall. That's kind of a regular scheduled meeting. And so certainly those are open to the public, and people can come at any time. they're certainly welcome to call or email any of us that are on the committee and come and participate. You know, we're open to having new members. There's certainly, I'm sure, people out there that could be very beneficial, but we may not know of them, so we'd like for those people to come forward and say they would like to help. And, you know, we're easy to find.
Okay.
And so I invite people to do that.
Okay, very good. So we can look forward to possibly some kind of grant petition that would qualify Fairfield for some historic preservation potentially in the coming year, and then also working with some foundations that would support the arts and culture for the Civic Center. Those are two of the areas that we are working on.
Yeah, and we are looking still for, you know, bricks and mortar type of grants, if we can find them. Of course, for the Civic Center, I think they're going to be a little bit challenging to find. But I've certainly found some sources that once the Civic Center is built, there are certainly foundations out there that want to support arts and culture in other ways as far as programs. And so once we actually have a building, then when we get to the program part, we'll be able to hopefully fund some things that way too.
Great, great. Well, thank you both very much for joining us this evening and giving us some background on the committee, and certainly hope and expect great things. Doug, thank you very much, and please extend my thanks to the rest of the committee. This evening, and following our Fairfield Live, we'll go to our City Council meeting, which is also live. On this evening's agenda, we will be receiving a annual report from Librarian Jim Rubis, and this will be a significant one since Jim is retiring in early February, so this will be the last report that Jim makes to our City Council, and we're really looking forward to that. He's done an outstanding job in that position as librarian, and this will be maybe even a little bit emotional that Jim making his last appearance here with us. We will have some work to do in terms of some approvals of subdivisions, and also accepting some work that was done on the Burlington and 4th Street traffic signal project. This evening I'm going to be making appointments to our Animal Control Variance Board. If you remember, that was something that was part of our new animal control ordinance, where if someone was interested in appealing their animal being classified as a dangerous breed, they had the right to go to this variance board. So we have some people that will be appointed and charged with that duty this evening. And we'll have committee reports from the Water, Sewer, and Utilities, and also the Property Committee. We will have a work session on December 18th, this Saturday. We'll be meeting with all of our department heads to discuss some items that they see going forward that will be important to their budget, since we'll be beginning our budget procedure sometime in January. And then we will adjourn for the holidays and Christmas. So on that note, we'll wish everyone watching, and certainly Connie and Doug, a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And thank you again for participating, and please join us for the City Council meeting immediately following this presentation. Thank you.